Hello there. This is episode 76.
Assassin of the Moonlit Night!
The episode opens with a recap of Naruto dab kicking Gaara out of the air. Instead of immediately closing in on Naruto's disgruntled face, episode 76 cuts to a crow flying above the trees. The bird's eye view we're given shows us there's no large-scale battles occurring anywhere near Team 7. Without any context and ominous music, this scene is honestly quite peaceful. However, when you put things into context, this scene has a different meaning. The crow is an omen of death. There is only one crow, so you could make the assumption that only one character is going to die, although the crow does call out as soon as it seemingly flies towards the battlefield, potentially indicating more crows will be arriving soon. The crow, aka death, encroaching on such a peaceful environment is a clever way of saying, tomorrow is a hope, never a promise. It doesn't matter how peaceful and perfect everything seems. One second you're alive, and then the next second you're not. After the camera closes in on the battle, we're shown a disgruntled Naruto and Gaara having a stare-off. Pakun and Sakura are attempting to tend to Sasuke's wounds, but they don't accomplish anything because neither of them are medical ninjas and Sasuke technically isn't injured. Sure, he got hit by Gaara, but his main issue is having no chakra, which makes him susceptible to the curse mark's voodoo.
Looks like we were too late.
What? What are you talking about? How? I get what Pakun means, but at the same time I don't. When he says,
looks like we were too late,
it sounds like Sasuke is either dead or dead to rights, but he's not. He's still alive. Sure, he's worse for wear, but it's not that bad. Now, maybe Pakun is talking about the curse mark, but does Pakun even know what the curse mark is? Reminder, Pakun would need to be summoned to learn about Orochimaru and his curse marks. Him knowing about Orochimaru makes sense, even though it's not clear when Kakashi recruited Pakun. However, the curse mark is a bit more niche, since not everyone knows about them. It's hard to imagine Kakashi summoning Pakun to help fight Orochimaru, since as Pakun states in a minute or so,
I guess now'd be the time to tell you I'm not the fighting type.
So if Pakun doesn't know about the curse mark, all he sees is Sasuke wounded with black marks all over him. Manga Pakun sees Sasuke and says, we're one step too late, which makes a whole lot more sense to me. The rest of Team 7 being too late means had they arrived earlier, Sasuke wouldn't have done that final clash with Gaara and would still be able to fight. A part of that interpretation still relies on Pakun having knowledge of the curse mark, since Pakun could be referring to if they were a few seconds earlier, Sasuke wouldn't have done a all-or-nothing Chidori and as such, wouldn't be vulnerable to the curse mark. While Pakun learning about the curse mark isn't shown to us, nor does it make much sense given what I stated earlier, the narrative seems to be implying that Pakun has knowledge of the curse mark and Sasuke possessing one, since Pakun doesn't freak out and nonchalantly says that they were too late.
Those two.
Why does Temari seem so aggressive? Pakun is more of a doomer in the anime and Temari seems more confident and confrontational. Her manga counterpart is still crap in the bed. She's more worried about Team 7 pissing Gaara off than anything else. Sakura starts to freak out since she knows what's afflicting Sasuke. She wasn't as worried before because
Kakashi-sensei said that bruise was nothing to worry about.
Right after that, Naruto asks Sakura,
This guy over here! Who the hell is he?
That's when Pakun informs the two that the mystery opponent is Gaara. That scene was definitely supposed to serve as comedic relief at Naruto's expense, but if I'm being honest, I think an in-character Naruto should have recognized Gaara pretty easily. He already has animosity against him due to what he did to Lee in the arena and what he attempted to do outside of it. Naruto also knows Sasuke was chasing down Gaara, and when he finally catches up to Sasuke, he sees a kid wearing Gaara's clothes, with half of Gaara's face, Gaara's hair, Gaara's gourd, Gaara's dark sunken eye, and Gaara's love tattoo. The character in question also uses sand, just like Gaara, the only person Naruto has ever seen fight with sand. I know hindsight is 20/20 and Naruto is supposed to be a buffoon, but ain't no way he wouldn't have recognized the most unique person he's ever met. After some flashbacks and stare-offs, Sasuke attempts to regain control over the curse mark, but epically fails. That's when Gaara finally recognizes Naruto as the kid from the hospital.
You're the one I didn't kill that day.
While anime Gaara isn't wrong, his verbiage paints a different picture. By saying,
You're the one I didn't kill that day,
it makes it sound like Gaara could have killed Naruto, was going to kill Naruto, but then decided to spare Naruto out of the kindness of his heart. when in reality, Gaara was actively pursuing killing him until Might Guy arrived. The manga portrays Gaara better by having him speak in broken English and say, "You're one I didn't get to kill." The get is very important. Gaara wanted to kill Naruto, but was denied the opportunity to.
I live solely for myself. I love only myself. As long as there are still people to kill in this world, I will never disappear.
That was an extremely packed 10 seconds. First and foremost, that's not Gaara from episode 58. When Gaara originally said those lines, he looked much different and he said more than what his flashback self said. I won't play the full monologue because it's too long, but here's the first part.
I live solely for myself. I love only myself. As it was the death of my mother that first gave me life, now it is the death of others that sustains me, that makes me almost happy to be alive.
I like the look of episode 58 Gaara more, but I get why episode 56 made the change. By having Gaara blankly stare and turn purple at the end of the sequence, we get a glimpse into how Naruto sees him. What I mean by that is, Naruto doesn't think Gaara is pure evil because he understands where he comes from. Back in episode 58, Gaara says to be alive without a purpose is the same as being dead. To that, Naruto thinks,
Could I have ended up like that if... I know just what he means. Exactly. He's the same as me.
having Naruto, who is blue, fuse into Gaara, who is red, to make purple is a perfect way of conveying the point that Gaara isn't necessarily good or evil, but he does need help to find the right path. Episode 58 is crucial to understand Gaara as a character, so I do recommend rewatching it if Gaara interests you. To continue with the analysis, another reason why a frightened Naruto envisioned a poker-faced Gaara is because Naruto was recalling this.
I live solely for myself. I love only myself. As it was the death of my mother that first gave me life, now it is the death of others that sustains me, that makes me almost happy to be alive.
Gaara and Naruto were both tasked with housing demons so that they could eventually harness their power and be a benefit to their villages. In other words, they're to be used as weapons. Naruto had a Ruka sensei to lead him down a different path, whereas Gaara had no one, and so he decided to become a weapon since that's all he knew. And, well, what's the general purpose of a weapon? Anyway, Naruto's immense fear causes him to forget about the trauma bond he and Gaara shared, which is why he goes,
Guys, get up! We have to go now!
but as you can see, Gaara takes advantage of Naruto's lower defense to speed blitz Sasuke. For those of you who don't know what a speed blitz is, it's a term used in versus battles. Rock Lee removing his weights and slapboxing Gaara is a perfect example of speed blitzing. With that explained, what happens next is perhaps the biggest error in continuity that we have seen thus far. It's so bad that it's outright inexcusable. See for yourself.
Die, Sasuke Uchiha!
Sakura, no!
Now, let's not even focus on Naruto's ability to track Gaara soaring through the air. Instead, let's solely focus on Sakura. By how it was animated, Sakura looked back and saw Gaara right as he passed Naruto. Think about what she was going to do, followed by reaching for her toolkit, open it, withdraw a kunai, then dash in front of Sasuke and take a defensive stance. The level of speed and perception required for Sakura to be able to do that would put her in a league with Neji, Rock Lee, and QBM Naruto. That is highly problematic since Sakura is not anywhere near those three in terms of feats. Her being able to react to Gaara is what's referred to as an outlier. That means none of her previous feats are even in the same ballpark as her latest one. On top of that, let's refer to last episode.
He's even faster! Only by predicting his moves do I have any chance of dodging them. Without my Sharingan, I'd be dead already.
Yeah, so Naruto reacting to Gaara whispering by him, all fine and dandy. Naruto having time to yell to Sakura after she takes her defensive stance, and Sakura taking her stance are not fine and dandy, because those two feats absolutely obliterate the speed hierarchy established prior to this episode. I also noticed how he downplayed Naruto by saying he had a quote-unquote small QBM. Now you might be wondering, Gee, Owen, what's the issue? It was a small QB amp. Sure, if you're comparing it to part 2. However, in part 1, at this point in the story, QB amp Naruto is the strongest character we've seen fight. That's excluding Orochimaru, of course, since he technically did fight Sasuke, but you get my point. I'm not just blowing smoke either. In chapter 28, Zabuza and Kakashi both sense QB amp Naruto and think that they are sensing each other. Since Kakashi felt Kurama's chakra before, he was able to recognize it. Zabuza, on the other hand, could not, but he did note that it was too strong to be Kakashi. Now, that is very important, because if the Naruto that fought Haku was too strong to be Kakashi, then just how strong is the Naruto that Neji fought? And not just how strong, but how fast. Naruto went from not being able to perceive Haku at all to dodging Haku's blitz attempt, to counter blitzing Haku and catching him in midair. That's a huge jump in speed. And before you jump all over me, yes, I hereby acknowledge Haku wasn't moving as quickly as he was at the beginning of the fight due to chakra loss. However, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't matter. You'll see. Follow me, lads. The next time Kyuubi Naruto makes an appearance is in the Forest of Death versus Orochimaru. The encounter is super short since all Naruto really does is stop Sasuke from dying by pushing the snake's mouth into the ground. I don't think it's a hot take to say this QB amp Naruto is weaker than the one that fought Haku. He doesn't have a cloak and his wounds aren't healing. Naruto also doesn't have that insane bloodlust that he had versus Haku since he didn't just watch Sasuke die. With that said, this is still an incredible display of strength. While this technically isn't a QB amp, I still count it because Naruto draws on Kurama's power and because of Jiraiya's statement. The statement being that Naruto requires more chakra than he currently possesses to summon a Battletoad. When Naruto does summon Gamabunta, the amount of chakra he received from Kurama was just enough to get the job done. That's why Naruto got knocked out so easily in the manga when Gamabunta jumped out of the ravine. Anime Naruto is still out of chakra, he just doesn't get knocked out. That might not seem too important now, but that's a secret tool that'll help us later. This is where everything is going to add up or get controversial depending on your perspective, so hang tight. In the anime, Naruto says this:
Amazing! This is even more power than I felt before!
In the manga, Naruto states he's so much stronger than he was during training. The only time we see Naruto use Kurama's power during training is when he summoned Gamabunta. While it is quite hard to quantify exactly how much chakra Naruto needed to summon Gamabunta, it's safe to say it was more than he used against Orochimaru. I think the anime hit the nail on the head by having Naruto say, "This is even more power than I felt before." As in, ever before. That's not to say Haku Naruto was fodder or anything like that. Finals Naruto simply has better feats. To extrapolate on that, let's go back to the Land of Waves. When Sasuke 1v1'd Haku, both Zabuza and Haku thought Haku would easily beat Sasuke in speed. However, the opposite was true. While trying his hardest, Haku was still outperformed by Sasuke, which is why they emphasize Sasuke's speed so heavily. As shown on screen, Haku thinks, "He is quick," and Zabuza thinks, "What? Haku lost in speed?" It is then when Haku uses his demonic ice mirrors. Personally, the narrative here kind of confuses me, because Zabuza claims Haku is stronger than him, but outside of the mirrors, Haku is absolute dog water. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, Sasuke essentially gets one shot here since he pulled a Naruto in my opinion. He just kinda stood there, watched the mirrors form, then watched Haku step into one. Ramble over. After Naruto arrives, Sasuke sits up and begins to think about the ice mirrors. As we all know, Sasuke couldn't see crap. He had no idea what was going on. He thought Haku was using shadow clones. There's no argument Haku is moving much faster than he is outside of the mirrors, but that's not Sasuke's main issue. Sasuke's main issue is that he cannot perceive, and therefore, cannot react, nor can he preemptively evade Haku's attacks. Shortly after Naruto enters, Sasuke notices Haku begin to slow down. There's two reasons for that. The first is the crystal ice mirrors consume a lot of chakra. The second is Sasuke's eyes were adapting to Haku's movements prior to his Sharingan activating. Haku stated that he was trying to take Sasuke down, just like he did Naruto, but he couldn't because Sasuke is preventing his vital points from being hit. Now, this is where the fun begins. Haku compliments Sasuke on his maneuverability just before launching his final attack. Knowing the attack is coming, Sasuke funnels chakra into his eyes to increase his odds of perceiving Haku's movements and accidentally activates his Sharingan. With the 2 Tomo and a 1 Tomo Sharingan, Sasuke was capable of perceiving Haku's movement perfectly, even though it was only for a brief moment. Now that Sasuke could perceive Haku's actions, he was capable of perfectly dodging his attacks while also saving Naruto. Now, you can probably see where I'm going with this, but in case you can't, I'll proceed. I already went over Naruto versus Haku earlier, so I don't need to do that again. However, it's important to note that while Naruto was fast enough to perceive and catch Haku, that's not too impressive of a speed feat compared to wounded Sasuke. So with that in mind, if Sasuke during the Land of Waves while fatigued could barely perceive Haku's movements, and then upon awakening the Sharingan could perceive his movements and even completely dodge them, imagine what Rock Lee would do. This guy, right here, the one that absolutely bodied Sasuke and put him to shame. This fight is a few weeks after the Haku battle, and there's no doubt Sasuke had been training. He has a 2 Tomo pair now, and it makes no sense to not train during that time period. Before moving on, let me reiterate, since Sasuke was incapable of perceiving and reacting to Lee's attacks, that means he was moving much faster than Haku was inside of his mirrors. This is weighted Lee, by the way. So here's what I've established. The Naruto that defeated Haku didn't exhibit any crazy displays of speed. You could make a strong argument that Naruto wasn't even moving faster than weighted Lee when he blitzed Haku, but I'll give the benefit of the doubt since Sasuke didn't appear to have any sort of mental amp against Lee, while with Haku he was in a life or death scenario. With all of that being said, we can get back to Naruto versus Neji. It's clear that Finals Naruto is stronger than Land of Waves Naruto for a few reasons. Firstly, Finals Naruto is a lot faster. It's clear that Naruto is forcing Neji to fight much more seriously now due to his newfound speed and power. If Naruto were only moving at, say, unweighted Lee speed, he wouldn't be able to pressure Neji at all. Sure, Naruto's punches would still hit like a truck, but Neji wouldn't have to worry about getting hit since Naruto would be far too slow. As a reminder, Lee's plan to defeat Neji was to open the 5th gate and hit him with the reverse lotus. He wasn't confident in anything else working. In the anime, Guy states that not even Neji could defend against it, further reinforcing the idea that the 3rd gate, and below, wouldn't be enough. Looking back at the manga panels though, Looking back at the manga panels though, it's a lot less clear whether or not Neji can make out Lee's movements, since there isn't too much expression on his face and he doesn't outright state he has trouble seeing him. It's kinda hard to say, to be honest. I'm of the belief that at best Neji can see blimps of Lee moving around. Comment down below what you guys think. It's not really relevant to the point I was making though, but it's fun to speculate. Personally, I would place QB Cloak Naruto around where 3rd Gate Lee should be in terms of speed. What's crazy about this whole fight is the fact that Neji is able to hang with Naruto perfectly fine until Naruto gets a mental amp on top of his QB Cloak. I don't know how many people are aware, but just before Naruto reaches Neji, he gets another burst of power. That's why Neji suddenly decides it's rotation or be pancaked. So take the Naruto that was already much stronger than Kakashi and crank its power level up a few notches. I know that took a while to lay out, but it was necessary to get us all on the same page. That clip came from my video, Neji Solo Sasuke and Gaara. I recommend checking out the full video if you're interested. The link will be in the description below. I'm thinking about doing an updated version of the video so the voiceover and editing are better. I'm also hoping for the video to perform better because most of the videos I see are people claiming Sasuke will utilize the curse mark to defeat Neji somehow, which is just peak fanboying because that's not how the curse mark works at this point. Anyway, the speed levels have been relatively consistent up until this point. I say relatively because all the older ninja had to have received a massive buff after the Land of Waves arc. If they didn't, the Genin speedsters would be faster than Kakashi. When it comes to power, Kakashi would already be at risk of being surpassed as well due to the feats the Genin have demonstrated. Gaara is losing it. Man's mental is completely shot. There's no other way to say it. Well, I guess there is, but it isn't as dramatic. Gaara could have very easily killed Sakura instead of pushing her into a tree. In fact, he was on his way to kill Sasuke, so it would make perfect sense for him to use some of that bloodlust on Sakura since she got in his way. However, Gaara's light side emerges, which causes him to momentarily freeze and spare Sakura instead. Not letting a good opportunity go to waste, Naruto swoops in and relocates Sasuke before Gaara regains his composure. Unfortunately for Sasuke and Sakura, Naruto does not have his either.
Damn it! Damn! What are we supposed to do now? We're screwed!
I mean, he's not wrong though. I'm sure we'd all be saying the exact same thing. Naruto doesn't have any special attack jutsu, nor can he utilize lightning nature, or lightning chakra, I should say, but same difference really. So there doesn't seem to be anything he can do here. Oh, and I almost forgot. I was about to move on to the next scene when I realized it was something I didn't point out. That something is Sakura's courage. Though she has her faults, Sakura has been consistently portrayed since the start of the show. In episode 6, she jumps in front of Tazuna to defend him from the goons. In episode 8 and 9, she stays by Tazuna's side while the others fight Zabuza. A few episodes later, when Team 7 is fighting Zabuza and Haku, she's still on bodyguard duty. Sure, she has Kakashi as the first line of defense, but that's not my point. My point is she is perfectly willing to be the last line of defense. In episode 30, it's Sakura that protects Naruto and Sasuke after they are both incapacitated. Sure, she didn't have to fight, but it isn't Sakura's role to lead the charge. Naruto and Sasuke are much more suited for that. After Sakura gets the two to safety, she realizes they could be ambushed at any given moment, so she attempts to hide them and set some traps. She also loses sleep because she knows Naruto and Sasuke are depending on her and she doesn't want to let them down. If they were in the forest of sunshine and rainbows, she wouldn't be so pressed. But they aren't. They're in the forest of death. Sakura then gets her opportunity to shine in episode 32 when she has to defend Naruto and Sasuke from the Sound Ninja. This is the first time Sakura has been forced to fight, but as I alluded to earlier, it is not the first time she was willing to fight. There's a big difference there. Her earlier showings should be dismissed as her knowing that other people would jump in to save her. That argument no longer works because Sakura is well aware that she is on her own. There's no Kakashi, Naruto, or Sasuke, or Lee for that matter, since he jumped in to save her in episode 33, I believe. She knows she has no chance of defeating the three opponents, even if they granted her the luxury of fighting 3 one-on-ones. That doesn't matter to Sakura though, because winning isn't what matters. There's a quote from my second favorite webtoon that stuck with me ever since I first read it. The quote comes from a webtoon called Eliseed. Eliseed's protagonist, Jiwoo, is who I'm going to be talking about. First, Jiwoo apologizes to his peers because he knows the end is nigh. Next, Jiwoo focuses all of his energy into one last attack. Finally, Jiwoo says, "This isn't for the win. It's for that little extra time." The concept of surviving one more second for the benefits of others is one of the most selfless actions I've ever heard of. I guess that makes Sakura one of the most selfless characters in Naruto thus far. Kinda funky if you think about it, considering all the hate that Sakura gets. As I mentioned earlier, Sakura is courageous. There's no argument to be made about whether she's brave or idiotic. Although I went on a huge rant about how Sakura dashing in front of Gaara makes no sense when taking continuity into account, it makes perfect sense when considering the narrative. That is 100% something Sakura would do. When analyzing her face, you can see the famous sweat drops of concern that every anime character gets. Undoubtedly, she is afraid. But who wouldn't be when facing a monstrous force of nature like Gaara? She's literally shaking when she first takes her stance. Sakura knows by jumping in front of Sasuke, she just signed her life away. If she had a Twitch chat, everyone would be spamming '07 and salute emojis. Despite her grim reality, Sakura stops shaking and becomes vehemently determined to hold her ground. Now, she does get one shot, but she is still displaying a level of determination and courage that at this moment is beyond Naruto. Returning to the anime, Gaara is momentarily incapacitated by the recollection of his childhood. I'm aware that by age, Gaara is still a child, but let's be real, would you call being nothing but a weapon a childhood? Personally, I would not. The flashback lasts for at least 7 minutes of screen time. I'm assuming in universe, Gaara only held his head for a few seconds. I point that out because if Naruto wasn't Naruto, he had a grand opportunity to kill Gaara. Whether it's writer-induced stupidity or not, Gaara's mom didn't protect him in episode 58 when Naruto punched him in the hospital, nor did it protect him when Naruto kicked him in the last episode. In fact, his mother had to protect him a single time since Gaara woke up a few episodes ago. That means Naruto could have easily inserted a kunai into Gaara's neck since Gaara didn't even react to Naruto swooping in to relocate Sasuke. Upon inspecting this shot closer, it looks like Sasuke is behind Gaara, given that both of Gaara's feet are visible and Sasuke's hair is next to Gaara's right leg. In the next shot, Sasuke's head is in a completely different position. If this were the top-down view of the previous shot, both of Gaara's feet would not have been visible. Now that I'm done nitpicking, we're taken into Gaara's flashback. The first thing we see is a picture of Gaara's mother. Gaara appears to be staring at the photo when he suddenly does this.
It doesn't matter what I do. The sand just gets in the way.
When I first saw that, I was a bit shook. Gaara is 6 years old and he just tried to stab himself. Sure, it wasn't aggressive, but he's still a child. Gaara's mental state is already so bad due to everyone treating him like a monster. His mother is dead, and his father and siblings are absent. The only person who will even talk to him is his uncle Yashamaru. Yashamaru may genuinely care for Gaara, but there is something worth noting.
As a member of the Medical Corps, our leader, Lord Kazekage, has asked that I see to your safety and well-being personally.
As a member of the Medical Corps, our leader, Lord Kazekage, has asked that I see to your safety personally. Those are not the words of someone who is happily and willingly watching over someone. It sounds like Yashamaru was forced to accompany Gaara, not look after him. If Gaara's father, the Kazekage, wanted to ensure Gaara's safety, he could have Gaara follow him around. Who could better protect a child than his own father, who also happens to be the strongest person in the entire village and is the leader of such village? No one. Yashimaru's task isn't to protect Gaara, it's to keep Gaara calm and mend the wounds of anyone Gaara may hurt. Gaara's father knows that Gaara wishes his mother was still alive, and Yashimaru looks exactly like his mother. Coincidence? I think not. Gaara neither cares nor is aware of any of that. He sees Yashimaru as the only person who treats him with dignity because, well, he quite literally is. And as such, he apologizes for hurting him.
Yashamaru, I'm sorry.
For some reason, Yashimaru is caught off guard by Gaara's apology. Given that 6-year-old Gaara is the type to apologize, this is likely the first time Gaara has physically harmed Yashimaru. Next, we get an explanation for Gaara's earlier actions.
The wound you got, does it hurt?
That, followed by,
Yashamaru,
What's the matter?
what does pain feel like?
Gaara has never felt pain before. How that's possible is beyond me, to be honest. Sure, his mother protects him from external harm, but there's nothing she can do if Gaara gets a muscle cramp. I'm assuming Yashimaru ensures Gaara is well hydrated and nourished, which would eliminate most of those natural complications. Gaara has ran before, but he must never exert himself, otherwise he would certainly know what a type of pain felt like. Overanalyzing aside, when Gaara asks, "What does pain feel like?" the camera swaps back to the photograph of Yashimaru's sister, which is a fantastic setup for the next scene, so keep that in mind. It goes without saying that Yashimaru being thrown off by Gaara's question makes complete sense. What does pain feel like is not a question people are generally posed with. Continuing with the episode, Yashimaru attempts to explain pain to Gaara and fumbles a bit in the process because it's difficult to explain to someone who has never felt it. He sums it up with this.
I'm not explaining it very well. Basically, it's a situation you want to avoid if at all possible.
Which, I mean, yeah, works for me. After hearing Yashimaru's words, Gaara looks at the wound on Yashimaru's wrist and concludes that since pain is something that's better avoided, Yashimaru must also want to avoid Gaara, since all he seems to do is cause pain, leading Gaara to ask,
Do you not like me, Yashimaru?
Gaara's emotions are conveyed perfectly in this scene. Once Yashimaru looks at him, Gaara blinks and looks away to break eye contact to make it easier to ask his question. However, it still isn't easy for him because he thinks he knows Yashimaru's answer, which is why he initially struggles to complete his sentence. Gaara does eventually look back to Yashimaru, but that's only after a few seconds of silence went by. Had Yashimaru said yes, little Gaara would have been sent into the Shadow Realm. If I'm being honest though, that probably would have netted in a better short-term outcome. Instead of saying yes, Yashimaru says this.
Everyone goes through their lives hurting others and being hurt. But it's not so easy for us to hate one another.
Gaara loves that reply and thanks Yashimaru for helping him understand pain. Gaara then discloses that he may be in pain too. Up until now, Gaara's perception of pain was that it had to be inflicted externally. He is of different mind now.
I think I might be hurting too. Just like everyone else. I'm always in pain. I know I'm not bleeding, but lately I've felt a lot of pain here.
Felt, little Gaara. Felt. This is one of the most important scenes to understand Gaara as a character. While he primarily inflicts external pain on others, he solely inflicts internal pain on himself. He's a child with extraordinary power granted to him by a demon that was sealed inside of his body while he was still in his mother's womb. As Gaara said here,
As it was the death of my mother that first gave me life, now it is the death of others that sustains me, that makes me almost happy to be alive.
he started off on the wrong foot. His mother died giving birth to him, which took his father's wife and his two older siblings' mom. I phrased it that way because no one looks at Gaara as one of them, and it isn't even his fault. Gaara couldn't control the demon's power and hurt a lot of people because of it. The demon also influences Gaara's mind and appearance. The dark ovals around his eyes come from the demon, and I'm pretty sure that's also why he doesn't have eyebrows. Those factors alone make it harder for Gaara to fit in. I imagine some kids bullied him for his looks, then got pulverized by Gaara-san. Anyway, just like myself, Yashamaru realizes Gaara is still holding the knife and takes it from him. He then decides to cut his finger and explains to Gaara that time heals all wounds to the flesh. However, wounds to the heart are different.
Wounds to the heart are a little different from wounds to the flesh. Unlike an injury to the body, there is no medicine for a wounded heart, and sometimes it never heals.
In response to that, Gaara decides, well, GG I guess, and understandably so. Gaara is only 6 years old and he's already the most hated person in the village. Yashimaru doesn't let Gaara sulk for too long though.
There's one thing that can heal the heart. Only one. It's love, Gaara.
That last frame of Yashimaru's side looking at Gaara looks weird to me. Let me know if I'm alone on that one. What Yashimaru says is true. However, living in today's world and knowing how many heartbreak songs there are shows that one needs to define love or specify the type of love that heals the heart. There's a difference between the action of love and the emotion. Both can be coupled together, but it's the emotion of love that causes disastrous heartbreak, not the action. Something else to keep in mind is love can and often does produce hatred. To avoid deep diving into philosophy or going on infinite tangents, I need only point to Sasuke, the man, the myth, the Avenger! And Uchiha's emotions can drastically increase their strength via the Sharingan. Hatred is the easiest and quickest to utilize, especially if you're an Avenger! Okay, I'll stop using that clip. Maybe. With that aside, Gaara asks Yashimaru how he is supposed to get rid of his pain, insinuating that no one is ever going to show him love. That's when Yashimaru informs Gaara that he is loved, not by him or anyone else that is currently alive. The one who loves him is his mother.
Shukaku, the sand spirit, is a living soul bent towards the purpose of war. The sand automatically rushes to protect you, just like the love of a mother.
That brings a smile to Gaara's face as he thanks Yashimaru for
stopping me before.
He says for stopping me before and not stabbing myself because he isn't capable of stabbing himself. What Yashimaru stopped was Gaara mentally torturing himself and spiraling deeper into depression. The scene ends with Yashimaru saying you're welcome and Gaara attempting to show affection, followed by an information leak to the audience.
Can you understand the pain that I feel?
We're then taken back to the present. Everyone is still standing exactly where they were despite Gaara standing there doing this. The scene then transitions back to the tournament arena. Kakashi and Guy are still fighting waves of enemy shinobi. Personally, I think that's ridiculous considering everything that's going on currently. The two strongest Jonin are lollygagging in the tournament arena, making a game out of it, while people elsewhere are dying. I didn't show it, but right before this scene, we were shown Hiruzen actively dying. Team 7 is also about to die. Kakashi and Guy aren't even killing these people, they're only knocking them out. While that's not inherently wrong, I feel like they should be neutralizing the enemy shinobi as quickly as possible so they can go where their talents are needed. I find it laughable that only 4 or 5 adult Leaf Ninja didn't get Genjutsu to begin with. After all, Sakura didn't get put to sleep and neither did Shikamaru. Those two are not the epitome of Leaf Shinobi. A massive insult to injury to this whole scenario is Guy and Kakashi having to stay the tournament arena to fight fodderlings in order to defend the civilians there. At no point are we shown the enemy ninja taking interest in the civilians. Granted, it would be grossly irresponsible for Guy and Kakashi to risk the lives of the civilians on that assumption. I certainly wouldn't. However, the enemy shinobi hasn't so much as looked at anyone who was unconscious. A few episodes ago, Sakura was only attacked because she was awake. Everyone who was deemed unconscious got ignored. Upon returning to Team 7, everyone is still staring at Gaara for what I hope is the 3rd or 4th second. We're then immediately taken into another flashback. Gaara is running happily with some medicine Yashamaru gave him to one of the kids' house. Upon arriving, this happens.
Sorry about earlier. I know it must have hurt. I brought you some medicine, if you want.
Get out of here, freak!
Honestly, I don't have very many words for what just transpired other than tough. Gaara has been getting combo moved ever since he was born. That was probably his first time displaying that level of affection towards someone, let alone a stranger, and it completely blew up in his face. The manga had the kid be a bit more harsh by calling Gaara a monster versus a freak. There were some other slight differences between the manga and anime with the earlier scenes, but they weren't that significant in my opinion, so I decided to leave them out. After Gaara drops the bag, he begins walking home when a stranger stumbles into him. Gaara looks back at the man's eyes and loses it.
Again.
Get out of here, freak!
Those eyes.
You're that kid!
Why?
You can probably guess what happens next. If you are unable to for some reason, replace this bottle with that man's body. Gaara continues to walk home when he notices his father standing beside him. Gaara just murdered a man and his father says nothing. All he does is angrily look at him as if Gaara is solely to blame for his circumstances and his actions, when in all reality, he was the one who had the demon sealed within Gaara. Nonetheless, Raza, Gaara's father, offers no solace and instead stares at Gaara like he's a dog who just pooped inside. He then lets his clearly traumatized son walk home alone. That is some A1 parenting if you ask me. W leadership as well. Because of Gaara's conversation with Yashamaru, the interaction with that kid, and the non-verbal disowning by his father, Gaara comes to this conclusion.
I was right. No one wants me.
If you don't feel sorry for Gaara at this point, then you are, in fact, the monster. We know how disturbed and volatile the current Gaara is, but I believe we can all sympathize with a struggling kid who can never seem to do what is deemed right, no matter how hard he tries. If you aren't moved yet, you will be after these next few scenes.
Why? Why do I have to be such a freak? What am I? Yashamaru!
Gaara continues to cry when he's suddenly attacked by kunai. Had it not been for his mother, Gaara would have died. This assassination attempt is the breaking point for Gaara.
What? Why? Why me? Why is it always me?
When Gaara says, "Always me," it's unclear if Gaara is referring to getting rejected or treated like a monster. Or, if this isn't the first assassination attempt, President Gaara said the assassination attempt started when he was 6 and he is 6 at the time of the flashback, so it's plausible that this is and isn't the first attempt. I'm more inclined to believe that this is the first attempt though, because of who the assassin is and because of this line.
What? Why?
I don't believe Gaara would be so confused if this wasn't his first time to the rodeo. Anyway, Gaara proves he is proficient with sand manipulation by instantly encasing the assassin in sand and crushing him. After landing the fatal blow on the assassin, Gaara walks over to find out the assassin's identity. The assassin is Yashamaru, the one person who has showed Gaara any kind of compassion. The person who told Gaara,
Everyone goes through their lives hurting others and being hurt. But it's not so easy for us to hate one another.
keep in mind, that was maybe 10 or 20 minutes ago. It's at this point that Gaara's mental is completely shot. The only thing left to do is type F, hit enter, and then type 07, followed by hitting enter again. I mean, just look at this reaction. Gaara is officially cooked. After recalling that memory, Gaara comes to and locks eyes with Naruto. Gaara then asks something that likely seems odd to Naruto, but to us makes perfect sense.
Who are these two? Who are they to you?
It's no coincidence that Gaara asks that question after thinking about how Yashamaru betrayed him. Gaara, and all of his bloodlust, is envious. He is envious of the bond that Team 7 has. Gaara has 2 older siblings that are nowhere to be seen in his flashbacks. We know that they don't play with him and they don't spend any time with him at all. When it comes to Team 7, they aren't related at all. They're essentially a bunch of randos that have what Gaara has always wanted: love. Gaara first froze when Sakura jumped in front of Sasuke to protect him. He knows Sakura is fodder, yet she was still willing to fight him to protect Sasuke when she could have very easily just ran away. That triggered the memory of Guy protecting Lee back in episode 50. Gaara asking Naruto who are they to him suggests Gaara's worldview is being challenged. He cannot accept that Naruto has what he does not, or more importantly, did not have when he desired it most. Naruto told Gaara that he had a demon within him back in episode 58, and Gaara seemed to believe him. He also saw Naruto channel Kurama's power during his fight with Neji, so he knows Naruto wasn't lying about that. So that begs the question, how could he be so hated and Naruto not? Remember, Gaara doesn't know a thing about Naruto's past. He only knows that he has a demon within him, and he somehow managed to form meaningful friendships.
They're my friends is who they are! You try laying so much as another finger on the 2 of them, and I will pulverize you!
That was certainly not the best word combination Naruto could have made. Gaara immediately calls Naruto's bluff and crushes Sakura more. I honestly thought Sakura was unconscious, but apparently not. Well, guess she's dead. Unlucky, I guess. I kid. The scene ends with Gaara daring Naruto to pulverize him. With no other options, Naruto leaps into battle in an attempt to save his friends. Please leave a like on the video if you made it this far. Your like will go a long way in helping me produce more high quality Naruto analysis content. Thank you for your time. Deuces.